a new dawning as the passion start to rise. The energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor to wake up and hear me neighbor.
I always ready.
I know that. Morning, people. Morning, Tobago. Morning, folks from all over the world who are watching us on updates, Tobago updates. And of course, we're coming to you from a lovely studio in Portmore in Scarborough. And of course, this morning we continue our particular program or shows where we call it Beneath the Surface. And we're looking at all the members of the Assembly, having a lovely chat with them, looking at some of their private lives and some of their achievements in their respective divisions in the Tobago House of Assembly. We started this program about 4 days ago and continuously and go right up until the 6th of December, where our final person will be here, will be the Chief Secretary, Farley Chavez Augustine. This morning, I have the honor and privilege to be chatting with a well-known gentleman whose voice commands attention anywhere he goes. The way he speaks, the way he expresses himself is known to the public near and far. And this is what I like about chatting with him. He's very outspoken, very straightforward. I want to especially welcome to the program this morning, Wane Clarke. Wane, my friend, welcome to the program. I really appreciate you making an effort to be here. Makes it easy for people like you when we have to interview you all. You're here on time, before the host, and all kind of thing. You tried to embarrass me this morning, you know.
Good morning, good morning.
Yeah.
Is that nice way of saying that the host was late?
But I thought you'd leave that for the people to pick up that. You know, but the program started on time, eh?
That's important.
That's the important thing. Yeah, man. So how are you doing?
Not bad. On the job.
You're looking young as ever, like you're really dealing with young people, boy.
Well, it's part of the job.
All right. We want to continue our program as we started a few days ago, as I said earlier. And this program, Beneath the Surface, we want to get a little insight into people's, what happened to them, you know, how they grew up, what influenced their lives to make them achieve where you are. You were well known in the sporting field, and you're on the radio tambourine for quite some time and expressing yourself in a very pragmatic way. You know, these are some of the qualities of human beings that I personally like when people are very straightforward with you. You know, you can't trust and deal with deceitful people. When you hear Was make a comment, you know, it's a comment that you have to value and take seriously. So what led you to be, have this kind of personality? You had to tell us, it had to be something with your grounding or your growing up. Or as people will say a long time, you're brought up, see.
Well, you know, regardless of the kind of growing up, the kind of parent in your head, there comes a time when you have to make a decision to define where you want to be, where you want to go. And in many instances, sometimes it's easier if it's in alignment with how you were brought up, and sometimes you have to make a about turn. So, you know, it's a sort of mix there, a little here, a little there, and you put it together. And
but I'm always interested to find out how you grew up around grandparents also, or you had elderly people in life, or just parents, or some people like yourself, you know, didn't have much parents to guide them, you know, there are other people in their life. What is the situation with you as you're growing up?
I had a little about, I had some time with grandparents, well, my grandmother by my father's side. For my mother came out of Mariah, the Samson. And I had a little interaction with the grandparents on that side, not much. So, you know, it was more on the Lambo side. I spent a longer time, lived right next to my grandmother, so I had a lot of interaction with her. The little more difficult part was that eventually I had also survived, you know, being a member of a broken home. And I think that in itself was the bigger part of the education. And that is what sort of brought me to
You have to build your survival skills.
good. And it gave me a deep appreciation for volunteerism, which is the reason why I ended up in a lot of schools volunteering at times, because I wanted to share my experiences with, because one of the things about the modern day child, 90% of them comes out of a broken home, single parenting, and I myself being a survivor.
And you want to let people know that single parent is not just absentee fathers, sometimes could be absentee mothers.
Well, in 90% of the times now it's mothers who have to bear the brunt of it.
Yeah, absent fathers then.
Right. Being somebody who came through that system, I always see myself as being able to relate to people who are there now. And that is what sort of gave me that motivation to go in that direction. You know, I volunteer at Lambeau School, which is the only school I attend, primary school. I'm a primary school dropout. It's just the truth. And I've been to Dorothy Moses before that. So I sort of have a close connection to those schools. So I'm always there, even at this age. I left Dorothy Moses in 1968. But even as today, I'm still there, assisting in whatever way they could, whatever way I could. I'm always at Lambeau School, and, because sort of that is where the heart is. So getting into politics, for me, was my personal decision about looking at politics, was being able to have an opportunity to stretch my volunteerism. I mean, yeah, it's a paid job, but I'm just saying that the services that came out of volunteerism, it gave me an opportunity to stretch it far and wide.
But if you just go back a little to your upbringing, apparently one of your parents was missing or absent for a while. Was it your father?
No, I actually stayed with my father.
Okay. Oh, I just wanted to make that clear. And how was it like living with your father, your mother maybe not around and so on? What kind of standards and styles and disciplines that you learn or you pick up from? Was he a very strict person, or he just leave you to have your own way?
So that makes it about. That my mother wasn't totally around. She was living close by, so I still had a chance to. But it was difficult to adjust to. You're born into an environment with both parents, live a part of your life with both parents, and suddenly it was just sort of taken away from me, and you never understand why. Because, as I said, that's big people business.
Yeah.
So I was with my father. I would occasionally visit my mother, And after a few years with my father, I went to live with my mother. Soon after that, I was alone. I was living alone. By the time I got to like 20, I was living alone.
One of them passed also?
And my father passed very early. I was just about 20 when my father passed, but it wasn't to do with that. I think after being on one side, and early on he was in the middle. So I thought, frankly, I thought my parents had too much children. So
you were part of what, 10 or 5 or 6?
10 immediately home, 13 overall. So I always kind of wanted to get out of the crowded situation, wanted to be on my own. So that was one of the reasons for...
Well, who or what inspired you to be on your own and to develop this kind of strength and purpose and want to play and go in a particular direction to achieve where you achieve?
You interact with different people in your life, and sometimes all of one person when you're above, and you're a little here, a little there, and because I'm always trying to work out this thing, I say, talk with Mr. Gerry today, me ain't like that shotty gun, me nah. I gotta go with Jersey, but I like the pants, so I gotta take up that. So, he's always, to me, always had to be assessing things as you live, as you go on, because the world is ever changing. So you always have to be being on top of things and making choices.
Yeah. But quite a few people in that kind of situation, sometimes, a lot of the times they have what you might call community support. You might have difficulty growing up and problems or issues with one or two of the parents, you know, and you have some people, a grandmother or other people from the community providing some kind of support or cajoling you, or advising you and helping you along. You had much of that or a little?
Well, I think that was the general nature of the Tobago we know. You know, so basically I think all communities would have a touch of the same across Tobago, in that, as the old saying is, to go a village is to raise a child. So I think we all would have benefited from that. You know, but there are people who would have stand out to me, like Mr. Hugh Daniel with sports. You know, that was my mentor. He taught me what I know, and he inspired me to actually get into coaching. You know, sometimes he has been inspiring me, not even knowing that he's doing it, because of somebody I always admire and watching him so close, you know. So we had a good bit of that. We had a lot of people in the community that you could have looked up to, that you could have talked to. So even being, I always see it as, it's so different to now, that the children now sort of are on their own. The adults of yesterday would not have allowed you to be on your own. So I think we were fortunate.
Even though you're pointing in a particular direction, they're somehow on their side, supporting you,
yes,
or providing some guidance.
And correcting you, and scolding you. So, you know, the adults now have more of a hands-off approach. The adults of yesterday had a more hands-on approach. You know, it's like, we're saying that we want things to be better, but you find a parent go run down by the school and size up the teacher to fight, and he don't even know why the teacher correct the child. The parents of yesterday, you go home and say that you get next door licking. So it says a whole total different situation.
What do you think have caused that? What? Technology, or what? Just people attitude just change? We move from an era where the community raised a child, you know, and to an era where people became more independent or maybe more selfish.
Well, I tend to go with the last one. And you see, sometimes you adopt a way and you don't even understand the fallout of it, the trouble that could come with it. It seems nice on top. For instance, you have $5 and I didn't have none, and you tell me, like, you got cinema, man, I got to pay for you, come on, man, we're partners. And when I have $5 tomorrow, I say, boy, look, you see me and this Gerry, come and beg me for my money. Me have no money, boy, we can't go. You know, that level of selfishness, you might start with just this cinema demonstration, but it grows. It grows to when you have to make bigger decisions in life, you hold the same road, and, you know, it's only a recipe for chaos.
You know, as you talked about community, I just remember that when I was growing up and coming from school, in Plymouth School, with all my siblings and so on, and a lady gave us a hand of banana to take for my mother, ripe bananas, you know, and my sister took it and she started eating the thing before she reached home. But that thing was such a curtail on my sister, boy. But you know, in all of that, that was a lesson. You know, when people give you a thing to give somebody, you do it a fear, you don't even open it, much less eat it. You know, carry out the instructions. Somebody tell you, give me so and so that. Make sure I'm going to give them that, you know.
And strange enough, it didn't have cell phone back then, but how did word used to get around so quick? You know, I guess it was a perfect demonstration of communication. You know, so it sort of kind of let today living look like, you know, in the abundance of water, the food thirsty. Because you have so much of devices at your disposal today, but as a people, we're very far apart.
Yeah, the level of discipline and things. But I want to get you to another aspect. People like William Mackenzie, who I knew before you, of course, and was involved in a lot of sporting activities and women cricket in particular, scene pulling and all this kind of thing, you know. Did he have any influence on you, or what he was doing in the community influence you at all?
Yes, as a little boy, I used to be with William. As a matter of fact, I worked in the yard there for years. I used to learn trade with his son. His son used to run a garage in the yard, so I used to learn trade with his son. So on many days, the garage might be slow. He come home and he said, "What's what you think?" let me go and make a dragnet. That's how we used to call pulling the scene. And I used to be right up under him. So, you know, I had a lot of interaction with him. As a matter of fact, when I now started playing for Lambo as his senior team, he always used to make himself available when we had to go Charlottesville to play.
He had the transport or something?
A Land Rover Jeep. We used to leave Lambo 12 o'clock and you might meet up there till 2:30, but you know what, we get in there. So, you know, I had a lot of interaction with him, and it is one of the people that I must say that I admire a lot and look forward, you know, aspiring to take a page out of the book every year and day, because he was a selfless man.
Boy,
you know, he was a man who actually genuinely cared about you and was a perfect, he was one of the reasons why when I look at him and how he functioned, I didn't only know him as the politician, I knew Mr. Mackenzie, who will still walk outside with a tear pants, and we got to the sea and pull scene in a tear pants. So that the Mr. Mackenzie I know, the more intimate Mr. Mackenzie, and he left a lasting impression on me.
I just imagine that would have been the case.
The politics is our next thing, but you know, Mr. Mackenzie as Mr. Mackenzie was one of a kind.
Yeah, you don't find too many other politics at all.
As they say, you don't make them
selfish,
like that.
You know.
They don't make them like that anymore.
Selfless kind of person, boy, you know. Anyway, but you were contesting, you into the politics though, you contested an election in an area where Mr. Mackenzie held for a number of years. All my 3 terms in the assembly, I was there with Mr. Mackenzie. As much as we tried as an party in opposition at the time, or any DAC, I think it was, we never able to outdo Mr. Mackenzie in that area, in that Lambo. It used to be called Buku Lambo, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And it clearly shows that the man was well rooted in his community.
Indeed.
You know, and there's so much to learn about that, how we live. You know, me and he was talking once, and he said, boy, when he was much younger, doing some mechanic, and he was repairing people's cars for like $5 or $2 and all kind of thing, and people wouldn't pay him. You know, he just never bother with them, you know, wait until a car breaks down again and he come and, you know, he still will fix it for them and this kind of thing. Just this selfless, no bitterness about the man. You know, he ain't carry no grudge and thing and bitterness in his heart. That's a strange man, you know, and just unique in every particular way. But I want to say that you won in that seat that the PNM never lost in the history of the elections in Tobago, that Lambo seat. What do you feel about that kind of achievement? You work so hard, or people just love you like Mr. Mackenzie?
I think it's more being out there, being always at it for a number of years. I mean, saying you win is one thing, but remember that was on the 3rd attempt. You served 3 terms. I won on the 3rd attempt. I contested 2017, 21 early and 21 late. So even from the present THE, there's only 3 people on the government that was there from the beginning, and that's the Chief Secretary, Dr. Faith, and myself.
Oh yes, oh true, yeah.
So I ran against Joe Mopit the first year, Tracy Davis in the second year, and Mr. Mackenzie's grandson on the 3rd occasion.
Yeah.
So, and I must say, before I move from that, I must say losing sometimes is not to always be taken from a loser's perspective. Sometimes it shows you, because the first time I ran, to be honest, I didn't have a clue. I just know I wanted to go and offer myself a service to make a difference, but how you go about it, really? You know, you
did not do the necessary preparation.
Well, it's difficult to prepare if you don't know what you're preparing for, you know what I mean? Preparing for public life is a college by itself.
You're telling me?
So, you know, but I always see it as a learning experience, and on the second time I try to straighten out things that you would have missed, because reviewing is always good. Right? That's the ultimate teacher, to see where you went wrong and how you're going to address it.
I believe in that, boy.
And on the 3rd occasion, I won.
Yeah, and that was quite interesting for the politics of Tobago to see where you came from and how that seat was how the PNM lost that seat, was quite interesting. But you enter politics, and everybody expected you to be in the area of some sport, community, have some sport, community responsibility. And you're the Assistant Secretary, Community Development, Youth and Sport, if my memory serves me right.
Yeah.
What are some of the things you have on your program, or you have pursued over the last 2 years to start with?
First of all, to take any direction, you live at Plymouth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you was traveling, like you're catching a car and you come out the road, then there's a reason why you take a car that's going up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know where you are and you know where you want to get to. So, and you have to assess where you are first of all. This is what we have to deal with, right? Because this is where we want to go. So after you do all of that, how do you get there? With what I have at my disposal in terms of resources
you have.
Right? It's always challenging. Let me say that in campaigning, in my understanding, a manifesto is a promise, right? And sometimes people hold you to that promise even in the absence of the expectation of resources, right? You might produce a manifesto and it centers around $10. Now remember, the person that you read that manifesto have an expectation at $10. I don't think they are too interested in understanding after that all I got was 5. And therefore I have to realign everything. They hold you to the promise of, you say you're gonna buy a car for everybody, I want a car. And that's one of the difficult things, and that's why when I am out on the street campaigning, in that particular election that I won, when people, what you could do for me? Because that's the first question you get from a lot of people. And I say, well, what I could do for sure, without even thinking twice, I offer you representation and communication with you as a resident.
Mm-hmm.
I would not sell you any pie in the sky because it would not be realistic at times. It's difficult to sort of make a promise of $5 in the room when really you've never been in the room, and in reality it's $3 there.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to keep the expectation down, keep it as real as possible, and tell you together we're gonna have to chart a way forward, because you're not gonna be allowed, where I am concerned, to drop the battle after election. You vote and dice it. I'm gonna come to you. Just recently I had a meeting in my constituency office with the residents. I said, there are things to do, I don't have all the ideas, and I need to hear from you what you want. Resources are scarce, so let us know what we could do to achieve some of the smaller things together.
Grab at the lower hanging fruit. But so you believe in the concept of, you teach a man to fish, more is better than giving him a fish?
Well, I think yes, because if you just give him a fish, when he's hungry, he will come for a next fish.
Mm-hmm.
And the fish you give him first might be the only fish you have. So
He may not get when he come back
a
again.
hungry man is a hungry man, so you know we're going to be greeting you when you don't have another fish to give him. But if you teach him to fish, he will turn his back on you and go and pursue what you were taught.
Mm-hmm.
So in that aspect, yes.
Mm-hmm. So how you cope with your responsibility? Your assistant secretary, what specific responsibilities you have?
Sport and youth affairs. Youth development, I should say.
Okay, so the community part is with the secretary?
Yes, we work together, but I have a little more direct say where the sporting aspect of it is concerned. I mean, it's not like I go off and make decisions on my own. I always communicate with him because it's a team, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I'm more aligned to the sporting part of it and the youth.
Yeah. All right. And you have any, I wonder if you should go for a break now. We should go for a break now. And when we come back, we want you to say what specific or special areas that you want to focus on with giving your responsibility. We'll deal with that when we come back from the break.
Do we get refreshments on the break? The information is for know that it is available. So that's our job. We're actually on the job with that.
And you really have to start there, and at the same time, can't forget a particular training program for the people, the players, you know, the sportsmen and women who may be eventually will form part of the association or organization.
Well, I think part of our...
So you have to do that parallel with your training or coaching program.
But I think part of our falling down on the island is that where sport is concerned, we had a tradition of focusing on the players. When the reality is the players are very important, but officiating, you know, is even as important. And having a structure in the organization is even more important. So it's like, if you don't have a proper organization, you can't have a good program. You don't have a good program, you can't produce good quality sportsmen. So it all, you know, it's a chain that you have to keep all the links together in order to realize, you know, the fullest of what you're looking for.
Yeah. And so you're on the way. Most likely you're tackling those issues right now.
Where we are getting started, it's not, the truth is that change is very difficult. It is even more difficult than I thought. Because many times we tend to measure things on our ability, but it's not you're doing it for, you know? And not because something is okay for you and it looks pretty simple and routine for you, don't think for one moment that it's pretty simple and routine to who you're trying to reach out to. So sometimes we have to switch places. I just give you a thing. One day, a guy came to my office, was pretty furious about something. And frankly, I didn't know what to tell him. And all I could do was tell him, come around here, sit down where I sit down. And I went around and stand up where he was and said, if you was me, tell me what you would do. And no, and frankly, that put an end to the... He actually saw how ridiculous he was being. He actually told me, well, nah, I will not do that. So I didn't have nowhere else to go in terms of... We didn't have a battle again. And we was able to come to an understanding. We actually have a very good relationship now. So sometimes, you know...
So it's your approach to some of these things, you know, and these challenges.
Exactly. And, you know, I really don't have I just call it a college approach. I operate from a layman's perspective in every aspect because that's who I am. So I never try to step out of my box to be different because we struggle with that.
Yeah. You know, preparing for this program, I was wondering, you know, which one of the disciplines that you could really focus on? You can't focus on football and forget cricket. You can't forget swimming. You can't forget athletics. You know, these are some of the key netball, burgeoning kind of area as well. You know, tennis, another area, you know, the lawn tennis program with all these people. Which area you could really focus on? You have to have some focus on all these areas.
Well, it has to be a little wide. You know, it cannot be a one direction, but to cover all, you could say that we try to focus on structuring of the organizations to get to development, to get to the... So, you know, because over the years...
But after 2 years, you're still working on the development, structuring of the organization?
Sometimes a problem is not cut and dry. And you will be fooling yourself to say, I will give myself a year to do that, a year to do that, a year to do that, when in reality, the problem requires more than a year's attention. You know, let me just use a simple thing as saying that is once pick any habit you have that mightn't be the rightest thing. Without understanding, it's very difficult to get you to change it. You know?
But we live in a very, in a society that we have to just come off of warm seats and nice, cushy offices and get down to the roots and to the bottom of some of these issues. You have sports officers and other people who are responsible and have training in developing sporting athletes and sporting organization. Many of these people with the degrees, where they just have it in training, kick football or kick a bat. So organizing the thing is part of the training.
Let's be clear on that. I'm sure you could recall going to school, and there might be some guy or a girl who was present every day, but they can't do a simple thing as putting a sentence together. So we sometimes place too much pressure, I should say, or high expectation on some of these officers, saying that you think a man have a degree and you think he should be able to get in there and work things out, and sometimes it don't always be like that. Sometimes it's very difficult for even them, right? Some of the officers, a lot of instances, my experiences taught me that sometimes apparently when people aspiring to get this degree and that they detach themselves from reality. And then it had to be a whole learning curve again for them to come and reintegrate themselves back with the society. In a lot of ways, the people that you're working with are detached from reality. And
How many sports officers here?
There's a few, I think about 6, 8. They have multiple responsibilities, but
are they some of them specifically attached to, say, football or cricket?
Yeah, so you will, how it works right now, which is always open to suggestion and improvement, how it works right now, then you'll have a guy, you assign him to a zone. Right? Let me say this guy is seen about, well, I just use the word zone. This guy is seen about Plymouth Blackrock. In Plymouth Blackrock, you would have watched and see, well, the most popular things going on there is football, cricket, basketball. So you take somebody who is more acquainted with those disciplines and you place them there, right? They are the ones now who has to interact and do the reporting back to the main office that this is needed, that is off, so we probably need a program here to bring this up to speed. And so that's where it is now. It mightn't be the most perfect situation, but in truthful speaking, that's where we are.
So, Asboy, we really look like we have a lot of work to do still.
Indeed.
After 2 years.
We have a lot of work, and the reality is, without you deciding to be a dictator, things take time. When I say a dictator, you approach your governance. Things take time. And this is not looking for excuses, but I'm telling you, if we have to get to where we want to get to, it will take a lot more time than 2 years. You're talking about changing people's perspective. You're talking about...
In the meantime, there's competition and national and international competition that people had to prepare for to carry themselves to a certain standard.
Yeah, well, you're not...
Maybe with or without your division support.
Well, that happens. It's not that you're sitting and waiting for the change to come in order to do anything. The life continues, the program continues, but the program continues with constantly chopping and changing. Because along the way, I mean, you have to be something other than smart. The opposite. To see something and working, even though that was the plan you had, and stay with it. See, we always had to be open for adjustments, open to listen, open to learn, open to coordinating with people and doing all that is required. And that in itself is a wide, But it's not all doom and gloom. There are some aspects in sports in Tobago that we have been making great strides in nationally. You look at Bishops, they do very well in netball, basketball. You look at in some other aspects, Phoenix are doing great with football. And, basketball went through a little lull with trying to get them up and running again because a good part of the society in terms of numbers was attached to basketball. And if you're doing good at, one of the things that always puzzled me in the Tobago space, we dominate, say, primary school football. There was a couple of years ago that 2 Tobago schools actually played the national finals. Right? But the disheartening part about it is that, and let me just make it clear, I'm not a Trinidad hater, but there are certain things that is just the reality of the situation. How do you explain 2 Tobago schools get to the final of the national competition and tomorrow you select a primary school team and 1 Tobago child on it? You would want to think it's a worldwide practice that you start looking by the winners. And this don't happen.
Because there must be some reason why the winners reach where they are.
Exactly. And to be frank, without any kind of looking to excuse or looking to offend anybody, it's a fact that Tobago has not been treated the best way in terms of
In other words,
sport.
they've been discriminated.
All right, well, that word didn't come out yet when I left school, so. but yes,
Yeah.
I said deprive. And it's always difficult. Think about it. A Tobagonian, the reality of the situation has to be twice as good to make the national team.
Yeah.
You know, and
That were more Dwight Yorks and that kind of thing.
in some instances, you actually have to relocate. There are instances that children hear the same coach come up, do screening, watch them. You ain't good enough. Transfer them to a school in Trinidad tomorrow and they're on the team. How do you explain that? That in itself sort of demoralize a lot of children. I, as a coach, because you know I've been coaching far and wide, I, as a coach, had to put up with young men watching you and tell you, look, coach, me ain't able with that, you know, because when you go there, they just don't take you on. They don't pick you. One chap told me he was an opening batsman for Tobago. Got a call up for national trials, and in the trial game, they put him to bat at number 7. You batting with the tail, and that's how you could.
You can't make runs.
Right. So, you know, situations like that, and it's a fact. I'm not saying this encouraging anybody or me, myself, hating anybody, but this is the reality that we're, and it's more important that we have to get with our game and always be on our A game in order to break through. We see this, we experience it over the years, and we have to get to the place where we have to stop blaming people and just be the best. You can't deny the results. We beat you, so that you fought because the world changed. Don't care where you are, once you're good in what you do, somebody is going to find you, because in the professional sport, they look for the best. They don't care where you come from.
And in terms of, I want to go back to coaching. All these areas are so important. You can't say one better than the other. In terms of coaching and getting people to reach national and even international standard, we ever thought of bringing a Jamaican coach, one of these guys from Jamaica in athletics, can't remember his name, a well-known guy, and or some well-known coach with some experience to Trinidad and Tobago to have a lot of these. Look, this girl from Plymouth, what is her name? Baptiste. You know, a lot of the ground training was done here, but you know, she had to go abroad and to experience that kind of competition, their kind of standard of coaching. You know, I'm not discriminating or putting down the level of coaching that brought her up to her standard. You know, but what we're doing to taking these things to another level to reach and compete internationally.
Well, I mean, collaboration
just
is
like
important.
What Kellyanne Baptiste did.
Collaboration is important, and we have to understand that we might not have all that we need to take us to where we want to be, and therefore you have to look to see where that assistance could come. I mean, frankly speaking, on the national stage, too much at times we operate like two different countries and not taking into consideration that the reality is that we are one country with 2 islands, right? Because in many instances, these programs they come to Trinidad, they don't come to Tobago. Sometimes you never know about it, right? So that's where one of the areas that we have to work on. The larger government of the day at times need to place an eye here. It's not just giving Tobago an allocation and tell them go and do what you have to do. We have to communicate, we have to combine in order to get things done at times. I hear plenty of people talk about this Jamaican model and the Jamaican model. I mean, I've been to Jamaica, I visit some of the colleges, see their programs and all that. But one thing we have to remember that every child in Trinidad and Tobago, under normal circumstances, goes to secondary school. It's not the same in Jamaica. Right? I think you would know that. They pay to go to secondary school there. So it's difficult at times to try to fashion a program after what they have.
They pay to even go to primary school and go right up there.
Right. So I'm saying is that
we're better off in terms of resources and institutions for everybody to equally go and into these institutions, into these schools,
right,
more or less basically free. You know, Jamaica doesn't have that, or maybe Haiti doesn't have that, but they still have outstanding.
Because Jamaica, although you have to pay to go to schools, where you will realize that there are a lot of scholarships offered in the system. Because they will give them a scholarship so they will get to attend the schools.
Oh, okay.
right? So it's a different approach. What we could capitalize on as I've been to Bahamas for the Carifta Games. And that's one of the things that I'm a little proud of. Over the years, we had 2 years in office, and I was able to, the children from Tobago that made the national team to go to Carifta, I was able to convince the chief that we need not only to try to strive for exposure for the children, but sometimes a parent would use all the mega means they have to get their children to that stage, and they themselves never get to see them perform at that stage. So we have this initiative that last year to go to Jamaica, we took one parent from every child that made the team. And we did the same for the Bahamas this year, where we took 10. All wasn't able to make the trip. There was about 20 children that got onto the team this year, as to 7 or 8 last year.
So what do you think that would do, bringing the parents along?
It does a lot because and I stay every step of the way with them. With this initiative, the parents actually get to see their children perform in that different environment. You see the children sometimes after they compete, they run up to the stands, you hug their parents. So it's an experience you can't pay for. And it's something that we intend to keep and expand on it. Right? We come into the facility that we erected in Black Rock. It's not complete, but it was able to host the Commonwealth Games. It wasn't, and I want to make this clear, it wasn't built for the Commonwealth Games for the athletes. It was built for Tobago as a legacy project. So the work will continue there, and we will continue to, and by the way, there's a lot of interest being shown from an international scale for this facility.
But I hearing about that for the last 2 or 3 months, and we ain't seen nothing yet.
Right. So
nothing finalized or formalized as yet.
So what happens is that, fortunately, the way how we plan is different to how international people plan. An international body will approach you for something for 2026, for 2025. A local person will approach you today for tomorrow. So it's a whole different set of dynamics. But
I thought there was supposed to be something there in November this month.
There's the Chief Secretary's beach football tournament there.
Oh, right.
That we're trying, because one of the things, if you're going to place yourself out as a sports tourism destination, you might attract a team to come here, but the onus is on you to actually take the opportunity to develop in so many different aspects that if a beach football team comes here, you have a beach football team to play them. Then your coaches could interact with them and get some of the knowledge, and So that's where we are, and that's the reason why we start the Chief Secretary's football, and then
football.
Right, and then we're going to have another one with volleyball, because you want to develop. You have the facility. You didn't build the facility for foreigners. You build the facility to enhance you not only as a destination but as a people.
Yeah. Boy. So I am seeing that we have some serious challenges, notwithstanding the fact that we had some successes with some of the disciplines and some of the sports.
It would always be a challenge.
Yeah, but we really had to get down and to dig down into some of these areas and provide good structure for the organization, provide good resources or funding, or help them to get up the kind of structure. So you have to have training programs for them,
Yes,
and that is extremely important.
Yes, and I will say that while in the Bahamas, for the Carifta Games, we stayed back, had a couple of meetings with the sports ministers and those people, and they are quite interested to lend us that support in terms of when people ask me what I think is most needed, I tell them administrative and coaching education. I think that's the pillars of what we have to build on.
You're quite right.
And they were very interested to collaborate with us. As a matter of fact, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to have a meeting with the chiefs, because I told them I want the chief to be in attendance at the meeting, a virtual meeting with the sports minister there and our people here to see how we can collaborate.
But it's just that you happen to be associated with the Bahamas because you're attending a function there. Because people would ask, what happened to Trinidad? And Trinidad has some fantastic sporting administrators and so on over the years in every discipline. You know, they had their challenges too, but they have some outstanding folks.
Well,
even Barbados, you know, have some outstanding folks in the different discipline.
You have to start somewhere, and I took the opportunity to start. I went to the Bahamas as accompanying the parents with the Carifta, and you took the opportunity to explore as far and wide as you could. We did that with Jamaica last year. By no means it's going to stop. It's a continuing process. And in the meantime, we have to try to find the resolve, find whatever is required to stop being two separate countries and be one country. Just understand that we are two separated islands. Because there were a lot of challenges. I'm sure you would have been privileged to somebody talk in this space when we was constructing in Black Rock, right? We was defiant to the authorities nationally that we're not going to do a temporary place in Pigeon Point.
That is nonsense.
But the thing about it, that caused people to be very angry. And we had to be defiant and say, no, we're not going to do that.
That is why we have a Tobago House of Assembly.
Right. So everybody would have heard the minister probably on every radio station and every TV station. They don't have no EMA approval and they don't have this and they don't have that. And I was of the fact that I'm not too big to learn. Might be senior in age to a lot of people are functioning around, but I'm young in the politics. So you have to humble yourself as a child and try to learn. I told the people responsible, okay, if it is that we didn't apply for the EMA approval, don't be too, put your tail between your legs and go and apply for it. If that's the process, that's the process. And we humble ourselves and we did, only to find out, after all that ranting on a national level, the very EMA had to tell you don't need an approval for that.
Because it's the area that you're doing.
It's a recreational area. It was designated a recreational area. So it left you in the place that you want to find out, why do we rant sometime when we rant?
Yeah,
and you're
maybe
all,
just for the political
one of the
reasons
most important lessons I learned in politics is that not everybody behind you is backing you. Because the easiest place to push you down is when you're backed onto somebody and you ain't watching.
You know, it reminds me in my early days at the Assembly and other people early days in the Assembly. You know, the state of the roads, maybe you may not remember in the 1980s, early 80s, or before the Assembly, how the roads were. And the reason that the government of the day was giving is that, listen, we didn't have the resources to acquire all those roads or the land from the people to get these roads widened and drainage put in and all that kind of thing, you know? So that was the reason why they kept us in the state. And that was the reason why the DAC won the election. And so when the DAC got into power, one of the first things they did, because they had no control over state lands and that kind of thing, you know, they can't acquire no land. They went to all them communities that have bottleneck and people own lands right up to the little narrow path where you're passing and so on, and asked them for permission to widen the road.
And in some cases, it worked.
It worked in most cases.
Right. So
most cases it worked without going through all this formal thing about going through to commissioner state land and acquiring land and paying for land. And
sometimes formality is a weapon that is used on you to not have you advance your intentions.
Yeah.
And we have to be very mindful of that in the Tobago space. And sometimes it's good for people to have expectations. Very good. It's also good for people to be realistic.
And it's even more important for people to be realistic.
What we have to be mindful of is sometimes a little confusing situation comes upon me. That, okay, we have a Tobago East and West representative, right? Some things must be etched in law, and some things we as people have to be realistic and sensible enough to know this can't work without this. Where's the collaboration with, just as how the law mandates the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary to interact, shouldn't public good sense mandate the East and West representative to collaborate with the Tobago House of Assembly. Because what we will find is that two people going to Trinidad, well, you know, we have the Tobago, we are saying they're going down to Trinidad, and we used to say a long time, we had to send down people who could go and fight. Two people going to the National Parliament to represent us. But what are the things that they're going to represent us on? Are they going to fly their party agenda, or are they going to fly the Tobago agenda? Has the Tobago House of Assembly and the East and West representative in the 2 years that we speak had a conversation officially to say, well, let us hold one line and try to advance this or that? And I could tell you as a resounding no. Right?
Yeah.
Our politics, as shameful as it sounds, but it's just the truth. You have a situation, and that's why it takes so long at times for people to get to any place. You have a situation that the THA was governed by one political party for 20 years. That's the DAC, DNA, or whatever. And then you had another shift for another 20 plus years, 21 or whatever years, right? It is difficult, and both parties would have experienced some of it. It is difficult to have somebody dancing one way for 20 years, and one day you come and tell them, this ain't right, you have to change this. In some place, they will fight you to the end. They will defy you.
Sometimes might erupt in revolt.
Well, right. So what I'm saying is that where do we get off and stop the foolish politicking and understand that this is a Tobago thing? Where do we understand that one cannot advance without the other? Because when you find yourself is in a comical situation. You know, long time when I was going to Lambo school, and they had a board latrine, a long board latrine, and you're complaining that it's in a deplorable state. So they say, all right, the school inspectors will come and visit next week, Thursday. And whole week you're scrubbing it out and paint it. And when they come, they're going to say, well, what are you making noise about? We have some of that in us. And we have to change it in order to advance. The reality that we face, you could think what you want. The reality that we face is that a lot of Tobagonians are between that rock and a hard place where a decision has to be made. If I'm going to serve Tobago, if I'm going to serve my party.
Yeah.
And we have to stop.
And it's very difficult, especially when you have two people in one party and they belong to the government side and somebody else on the THA on the other side. You know, generally they take what the political leader or the prime minister says.
And this is why I say that you have to make that decision. Because let me tell you, strange enough.
And there's a serious and genuine collaboration is required.
When I got elected, one of the first things I did was have a conversation with the Tobago West MP. Because I didn't see party, I was seeing Tobago. And I said that I'm prepared to work with you because I don't think we can advance Tobago's cause being separate. So I'm prepared to work with you. The day when we got sworn in, I went to the minority leader. I said, I'm prepared to work with you. And I give you my commitment that if you bring something to the house that I honestly think is in Tobago's interest, even if I have to break tradition and support it, I will. Because that is what is required to advance it.
And what was his response?
Well, yeah, until next half an hour, there was a press conference, and it was the opposite to what we talk and discuss. So the bigger problem, the bigger thing that is facing us is where are we as a people going to get off of the party lines? People are dying.
The interests of Tobago must come first.
Well, it's the interest of some people party that come in first. It's okay if they had to destroy Tobago for it. Because if you watch at certain things, I don't get hasty here, but if you watch at certain things, look at what year did the Dispute Resolution Commission ruling came into effect?
That would be before 1996.
2001, right? Somewhere around there, because Ho Choi never get to see the light of that as Chief Secretary.
Well, he was the Chief Secretary in 1996.
Right, to 2001.
Okay.
So, but all I'm saying is that
yes, it could be around that time.
His administration never saw the benefits of that. All right, but we boast about having a Dispute Resolution Commission ruling, and 23 years later, it might have been a great relief and an upgrade to what existed at the time. Did we, in doing that, see the need in these 23 years that went after to say, well, this thing has to be revised every 10 years or every 4 years? Because you have people now holding you to that. And you, a man who was in the politics, has Tobago ever received 5% of that allocation?
No. And then if you're not even receiving 5, and it's up to 6.9, I think was the limit, and you're not even receiving 5. You know, what is the sense of asking for review? Because you're not even reaching the capacity.
So this is the point I'm making. You have to understand that people will use things to prevent you from advancing. And
definitely. That is the nature of the politics, and that is where we have to get below us.
It's not a system that can advance us. It is not. It is not going to help us. We said that Tobago want to thrive on tourism. How can you get to that place if you can't get to the island?
Well, there is where airlift and sea bridge support is extremely valuable.
I've seen that
the Chief Secretary is going to make an announcement about that.
I've seen that we are close to that time, but I'm saying also that we have a situation in sort of looking to close. We have a situation that in many instances, because of political foolishness, all of us going to suffer. And we have two things in wrapping up. How can you seek any progress when we have a situation that the quarry is one of the things that could bail us out to a certain extent financially, but you were denied a license to export the material from the quarry. After, for 20 years, it was routine renewing it.
Yeah, that is where the way you call it nasty politics.
So, but what I'm saying is that where do we get off? You are prepared to suffer and kill off an island to forward your political agenda?
Well, the Assembly has different course of action that they can take, and the public or the population and the people resident and who live here and who vote here, you know, they have decisions.
They are the ones that have to wake up.
They have to make decisions with respect.
It's just like they're telling you somebody have something in front of you, and they tell you watch, but don't touch. And after 10 years, they tell you, okay, touch, but don't taste. And 10 years pass again, and they tell you, taste, but don't chew.
Or don't swallow.
No, well, that's for the last 10 years, and they're going to tell you, chew, but don't swallow. And that is the Tobago situation.
We have to do better than that. Well, thank you very much, boy. You have been quite inspirational guest, and I really see your fight, and I could understand your struggle and some of the issues why we can't move faster in the state where we are. But we have to continue trying, we have to continue communicating, and collaboration and decent and well-meant, you know, conversations with all the parties and all the persons concerned, I think may or should bring a difference or make a difference in our state here in Tobago.
All of us live in the Tobago space, and the Chief Secretary might have been misunderstood when he said we're going to make Tobago the greatest little island on the planet. You can't say that about Trinidad is a bigger island than Tobago. He didn't mean insulting Trinidad. He mean that we make it the greatest in which size and category. I don't think that just take that the right way.
I don't bother with them kind of small talk with these people. I find it's a nice mantra for us to work towards and so on, and deal with all the issues that can elevate us to be the best little island on the planet. You know?
I subscribe to that.
Okay, folks, this was an extremely hearty and really thought-provoking discussion that we're having here with WASP. Saying WASP all the time, but the man who correct name is Wane Clarke, but we all know him as WASP. A really dynamic. A lot of people don't know his correct name. You know, the man's correct name is Wane Clarke. Do write the man letters, official letters, and say, hey, WASP, I want this and so and so. I
just tell them to just change it, or I will change it. The information is what is important, not the title.
Yeah. But you have a particular way of doing things here, and that is important. So thank you very much, viewers, for listening and viewing, of course. And I look forward to all the comments and the suggestions, and even some of the little criticism that you have of me sometimes when we do these programs. These things help to strengthen us and help us do things differently or in a way that makes people understand or appreciate what we're doing here at Tobago Updates. So, partners, thanks again.
Thank you.
And see you next time. And keep up the good work. Continue fighting, but fight with purpose, direction, and strategy. All right. See you next week. Tomorrow, Monday next week, yes. When we have, not too sure we have on Monday. Who that could be?
Another assemblyman.
Yeah, another assemblyman will be with us next week on next week Monday. So you have a blessed weekend. Nice weather. We just enjoy it. Other parts of the region are having a serious issue with a storm coming through at this late of November. Jamaica and other places, Turks and Caicos and some other places. One to the match last night. Last night was the match with yesterday.
Oh, with
And America.